Hey, I'm so excited to chat with Anthony Jones, and we're going to be talking about LinkedIn. I mean, it's such a platform that to me is like, a diamond in the rough, and it hasn't really been like tapped into, and it's almost underestimated. And especially when it comes to podcasting, I think people automatically think like Instagram and Facebook and kind of like LinkedIn is like a last minute thought. So I love that you're here chatting with me because you are the LinkedIn expert. So you can share some wisdom. So why don't you first just tell me a little bit about what you do and why you love LinkedIn so much?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Lindsay. Really happy to be here today. Yeah, so just my background in general, I've spent the last 19 years working in the digital marketing and digital media space at Ducks Unlimited, and just recently launched my own company to do just what we're talking about right now. Yeah,
Awesome.
to help people build their brand, their personal brands on LinkedIn. And you nailed it. So many people underestimate just the power of what LinkedIn can do for a personal brand to build your business. If you're a podcaster, to promote your show and so forth.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's something that for the last couple of years I've been really active on LinkedIn from a personal standpoint, just to kind of learn the platform and see what type of content resonates. And I've learned a lot of lessons and looking forward to sharing those with people over the coming years to help them build their brands and their business.
Yeah, and I remember like reading your bio and just kind of meeting you for the first time, and it's like how you've grown your LinkedIn profile and just the activity that you have and the number of contacts. It's like, holy Hannah, it's like I want that. Especially as a podcaster, I want all those eyeballs on my podcast. So why don't you kind of explain some of the basics and maybe the key strategies that as an entrepreneur and a podcaster, we can, boost our impact?
Yeah, yeah, and really, I'll kind of give you a little more background too. So,
Perfect.
like, I created a LinkedIn profile back in 2007. Like when LinkedIn was out there,
Hmm.
didn't know what I was doing. It was just what professionals were supposed to do. You go in, you upload a profile picture, a couple of sentences in the about section, and for years I never went back to it unless I was hiring someone for my team. But like in 2016, it was when Microsoft purchased LinkedIn. I came across an article that talked about how fast the network was growing and that a handful of people were using it to build their personal brand. And that was like the first time I'd even heard that term. So I started coming back to the site on a regular basis, but really paying attention to the content.
Yeah.
And there was like this one universal truth. Every time I went back, I was like, this is the most boring crap I have ever seen. Right. You know, the news feed was filled with job postings that had no relevance to me, links to corporate press releases and motivational quotes that people were just blindly resharing. And I learned that your network is your news feed is only as good as your network. So I took
That's
some time. I
powerful.
started to expand my network, connect with more people. I had this mentality of, I would never use LinkedIn to connect with people that I didn't personally know or work with. And once I kind of got out of that mindset and realized that, it's the power of LinkedIn is actually in building your network and growing and expanding it. But in order to actually, build your personal brand and stand out, it all starts with posting content. And like that's one of the biggest hangups that people have when it comes to LinkedIn. And I'll share a stat with you. There's like 770 million LinkedIn users across the globe, but only 3 million are posting content on a weekly basis. So,
Holy.
yeah, so if you do the math on that, that's like half of 1% of all global users on LinkedIn are posting content. And those 3 million people are getting 9 billion views to their content every week. So unlike networks like Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, where they have become so oversaturated with
Yeah.
content, where you're not, buying paid ads for your content, the reach is terrible. But these are like the good old days of LinkedIn right now because the platform is still growing day by day, but the number of people posting content on the whole is a tiny, tiny fraction. So it's a great time for your content to be seen and your voice to be heard.
That's crazy, that stat. It's quite
Yeah.
staggering. So really, it's like the opportunity to stand out and reach more listeners for podcasters is huge. So how do we make that happen?
Yeah. So like there's four key pieces that I like to suggest. First of all, you need to make sure that you're optimizing your profile.
Okay.
And as a podcaster, you can certainly have your individual profile. You could have a company or a podcast page profile. I would suggest that you really focus on your personal page because people connect with people a lot more than they connect with a brand or even an episode or a podcast. So focus on your personal profile. And I'm not going to go through like the full list because you can do a quick Google search of how to optimize your page.
Right.
And it's going to walk you through the basics, like, make sure you've got a good profile picture, make sure you're taking advantage of that banner image at the top, make sure you've got a powerful headline, all of those things that, if you really sit down in a couple of hours, you can fine tune your profile page.
Perfect.
But what a lot of people miss there is they don't sit down and like define the goal of their profile. So like, is the page just about you? Like here's my professional resume. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make because the page should be about you. It should be about the products, the services, whatever you offer and the people that you help. So like if you go to my page, for example, if you look at my profile right underneath my picture, my headline says, I help professionals build their personal brand on LinkedIn. Doesn't talk about my company. It doesn't give my title. It's like, this is who I am and this is what I do.
So kind of like you're showcasing your solution.
Exactly. Because when a person goes to your profile page, they're looking at it from the aspect of what's in it for them, right? How can this person potentially help me? And you want to make sure you make that clear up front. So like that should be like the first thing that you think of when you sit down to actually implement and optimize your page. Kind of keep that mindset of what is it that I want, how do I want to position myself and what do I want to be known for when a person finds my LinkedIn page. So that's the first step.
Okay.
Step number 2 is posting content. And that we could get into a really lengthy discussion on that, but I'll give you just a couple of pointers here.
Perfect.
The biggest mistake that people make, aside from not posting content, is they feel like all content on LinkedIn has to be professional and career related. And that's just not true. Like the people who do the best and the content that I have posted over the years that has done the best is content about me, like who I am as a person.
Really?
So absolutely. So if you will take kind of that step outside of the norm, if you will, of what most people think LinkedIn is about, and show your personality, that's going to make you stand out from everyone else on LinkedIn because most people are afraid or they just don't know, if that's really appropriate or not.
Because it feels really like a corporate space. You feel like you got to like watch your P's and Q's.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But like the post that I've made of, whether it's just something that I put out, I try to use humor, try being the key word there. Because I feel like humor it's relatable, it's universal. No one ever got mad from laughing. Yeah. So I use that. I'll post something funny that my kids did, or just something about me as a person, sharing my hobbies and my passions, and that content 10 to 1 gets more engagement than something about a lesson I learned in my career or the typical post that you think of when you think of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So as you start thinking of your content strategy, 1, be sure you're putting yourself out there as a person. And then 2, develop what I like to call like content pillars. So these pillars would be like categories of content that you can speak to with a lot of authority. So like over the last couple of years, I've had a content pillar about me. I've had a content pillar about Ducks Unlimited, my team, projects that we were working on. A third pillar where I would talk about hunting, conservation, and the outdoors, because that's a big part of who I am and as a person. And then my fourth pillar has been recently like LinkedIn tips, LinkedIn personal branding tips, because that's an area where I want to be seen as a thought leader on LinkedIn. Yeah. So as a podcaster, think about the topics that you cover on your podcast. Like you've got a lot of content and a lot of material right there, probably in the can that you can pull from to start posting content on a regular basis. And one of the things that I see podcasters do, and I think is a mistake, is they'll take their full podcast and they'll upload a link and they'll make that the post. And that's really doing you no good for a couple of reasons. Because one, when you post a link on LinkedIn, the reach is terrible. They want you to upload native original content to the platform. So instead of doing that, consider taking a sound clip or a segment of the interview that maybe went really well or had a really strong point and upload that. Have a good mix of audio, video, text, and photo posts because you want to have that variety in your content. So yeah, those are a couple of ideas to hopefully help you with getting started with posting content on LinkedIn.
That is really useful. And I do want to dive into one thing, but I have one quick question before it escapes my mind, is that there's like the LinkedIn quote unquote pulse or the LinkedIn articles. And how is that, like, does that give you impact? Are people even still reading the articles? Like, because I have like posted, my podcast or a blog or whatever, because again, like you said, it's native content and it's all in there. And they have gained a lot of traction. So just kind of wondering where you stand with those.
Yeah. So the short answer there is I put a lot more emphasis on individual posts than I do the LinkedIn articles, which was formerly known as the Pulse. Now it's just articles. I've written probably a dozen articles over the last couple of years. And what I've seen is the organic reach of an article that you post on LinkedIn is very, very small. I don't really understand why LinkedIn limits the reach of articles.
Yeah. Why have it if you're not going to?
Yeah, exactly. But the reach of a post is much greater. But there are two benefits to having an article that stays on your profile. One is there's no character limit. So there's a character limit on post. An article can be as long as you want. You can embed media, video, audio, so forth. So it's a really rich, blog style article. But second, the articles on LinkedIn are indexed by Google, whereas the individual posts that you make on LinkedIn, at least as of now, are not searchable on
right.
And that may be changing, but that's kind of the two benefits. Is it's kind of like it has evergreen value. It's going to be out there for a long time. And I've had a lot of traction. I've had some traction to my profile over the last couple of years from people who did a Google search. They found an article that I wrote, and then they followed me as a result. But that's kind of, there's some trade-offs there for sure.
Totally. And like, to me, when I go to someone's LinkedIn profile, I actually like to go to the articles because then it's like, I can kind of dive in and get a really good overview on what their expertise is. And then if there's something that I need help with, it's just like more meat that I can like sink my teeth into versus going through a bunch of little posts. So I guess they both serve a purpose.
They do.
Either which way. They
do.
So like, here's a question for you. So as a podcaster, obviously we share podcasts that we, create. And I do see a lot of people, and this is one mistake where it's like, hey, this episode went live. I talked to this person about this. And it's really like, it doesn't really get into what was like discussed or how it's going to benefit someone. And then there's a link, and then that's kind of it. I mean, obviously there's, like you said, we could go into like chat forever about how to promote a podcast. But would you say then how you were talking about like how it relates to you? So like, for instance, I just kind of want to, sorry, I'm long-winded. I just want to dive into this.
Great. No.
So obviously I'm talking to you about LinkedIn, and it's like just my own misconceptions or my own kind of aversion to, like, you have kind of helped me debunk that. So I would share this episode of you, but sharing my own personal impact or view on it while I'm sharing that podcast. Is that the kind of approach that you're kind of like thinking, just to kind of help me frame it?
No, you're exactly right.
Okay.
So sharing your personal insight on that. And this is something else, like I've said, I've made posts about this in the past, like there are a million people who do exactly what you do. Mm-hmm. And every tip about like the world I come from, online fundraising, digital marketing, every tip out there has been shared in some form or fashion. True. But it's your unique perspective on that particular topic that makes you stand out. Like what is Lindsay's opinion about this particular podcast or this episode, and your take on it. That's what makes you unique. So yes, finding ways to plug in your own point of view, but then also as you look at your entire content strategy for LinkedIn, think of it as, what value am I adding to the people who are following me by adding this post? Like, what's in it for them?
Totally.
It can't be. So many people take the approach of, oh, this is about me. Look at me. Look at my stuff. Look at my posts. But if you take the mindset of leading with value, providing value to your followers, that's going to give you way more engagement, way more views, way more, exposure to your podcast. So if you take a nugget or a soundbite from a particular episode that was really impactful, had a really good tip, maybe from your guest, and you feature that with your perspective, that's way more valuable than just, hey, here's episode 24 with Anthony Jones, go check it out. That does nothing.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's really helpful. And you made a good point. Like, yes, you want to inject your own personality and how it impacted you. But I mean, really, first and foremost, you need to put the listener first. So it's like, state that struggle. Like a lot of people, podcasters struggle with how to use LinkedIn or how to share their podcast, and they feel stuck. So then they're not consistent, and then they're not growing their network. Whereas you have just shared these tips to help people get past that. And I think a lot of people do struggle with how to, whether it's a video or a podcast or a blog, they just really struggle with how to frame it and how to like promote it and use it and leverage it and get it out there. Where I think like you just hit the nail on the head, like, making sure that you're keeping it like personal and reflecting, and also making sure that you're capturing, what they're struggling with and how you're benefiting other people.
Exactly. And something else I would add there, just as like a third component of, building your brand and getting content out there. A lot of people are just going to be hesitant, and they may not be willing to put out a lot of original content. And that's okay. There's another way you can start building your brand, even if you don't want to do that. And that is by intentionally and strategically engaging with the news feed, like contributing to the larger conversation that's taking place on LinkedIn. Right. And what that really involves is just like I tell my students in various sessions that I have, spend 15 or 20 minutes every day just going through the LinkedIn news feed and look for content, look for posts that resonate with you. Maybe it's a subject someone posts that's relevant to your podcast or an episode that you've had, and like it and leave a meaningful comment. And if you start leaving comments on 4 or 5 posts every day on topics that are, in your niche, in your realm of influence in your podcast, you're going to start to see a couple of things. One, you'll be seen as someone who's contributing to the larger conversation and not just look at me, look at me, look at me. And two, you're going to start getting more views to your profile because people are going to see that, hey, Lindsay's leaving all of these really informative comments. They're going to click your profile, see who you are, and you're going to start getting connection requests out of the blue from people because they see that you have, again, value to add on someone else's post. And if you open up your news feed and you really don't see the content that is resonating, it's the job postings that have no relevance or motivational quotes, you can actually use the LinkedIn search feature to search for a lot more than just people. So do a search for like a specific topic, maybe that you talk about on your podcast. And let's say it's personal finance. You could do a topic, a search there, scroll through the news feed. You can filter by posts that were made in the last 24 hours.
Oh, really?
In a geographic region. Whoa. By your first degree, second or third degree connections. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a wealth of content that was recently posted about that topic that you know a lot about, that you can speak to with authority, and you can go through and start leaving comments on those posts. And that's going to help establish who you are, what you're known for, and help build your brand. If you just do nothing but that on a regular basis. And in doing that, you will also start to see that you're going to come up with ideas for original content of your own, because you're going to see what other people are posting. You're going to see how other people respond to your comments. And that's going to help that content generation process for yourself.
And it helps you give me, more visibility and also create more connections, which is
Exactly.
huge. I did not know you could search like that. So do you have to use the hashtag or anything, or you just like search the topic?
Yeah. So like on that example I just gave you, just type in the topic.
Hmm.
When the results come back, there's a number of filters at the top of the page.
Yeah.
People, companies, locations. I click on posts. So you'll see posts that contain that
Right.
key phrase. And then you can take that even further of saying, just show me posts in the last 24 hours
Wow.
or posts who are currently first degree connections versus second degree. You can also search and follow hashtags. I'm glad you brought that up because LinkedIn has put a lot more emphasis over the last couple of years on using hashtags, to categorize your content based on the what's in the content. And so I would highly encourage you to find a handful of hashtags that are relevant to your podcast, follow them, and you can use that search feature that same way of, searching for content by hashtag and using hashtags in your own posts,
Right.
As it relates to the content, so that other people can discover your episode or your podcast based on, the fact that they're following some of those hashtags.
That is huge. That is a huge game changer. It's like, where else can you narrow down your like niche and your segment, your people that you want to like communicate with and network with? And that's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
the search feature is
one of the most LinkedIn after this.
Tony, that search feature is one of the most underutilized features on LinkedIn, and they've put a lot of resources in building that up over the years, and it's a very powerful tool if you know how to use it.
That's awesome. And the other thing I want to quickly ask you about as well is live video that's available now on LinkedIn, and even like uploading videos into apps like StreamYard where it acts like it's live. Because really LinkedIn was never really into that.
Yeah, and LinkedIn was really late to the game when it comes to video in general. Like it wasn't until 2017, I think, when they finally got around to allowing people to upload native video to the platform. But it's something they've put a lot of emphasis on over the last couple of years. I've noticed that the reach on video content has gotten lower over the last year, but the engagement rate on those videos are much, much higher than a text only or a post with a photo, because, videos they can build your brand faster than anything else. It's the toughest medium to figure out because a lot of people just aren't, comfortable on camera, but it helps you portray who you are in a much more authentic way than any other type of media. So I certainly encourage people to take advantage of video. But to your question of the live, that's something I've had limited experience with. I've done a couple of podcast interviews where, very similar to the way you're going to use your live on LinkedIn. I've only done a couple. It's funny, I applied for LinkedIn Live a couple times over the last few years and was rejected.
What?
Yeah, they were very, very picky in who they allowed to have live access.
Yeah.
But now they're opening it up to pretty much everyone who makes the application, which I think is great.
Thank goodness.
And,
it still took a little while though. It took like 2 or 3 weeks for me to get access again.
Yeah, it's been slow for sure. And I think people who are taking advantage of the live feature right now are really going to have a head start over everyone else, because like I'm in the boat. I'm trying to figure out, how do I want to use live? I don't have a podcast or anything like that, but how can I use it? And like a couple of ideas that I have is to go on and just have like a Q&A session with people who want to pick my brain, 30 minutes for free, ask me anything, that type of deal, to help build, thought leadership, position myself as an expert in the field. I think that's one way a lot of people have used it and used it effectively.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, like video, you're just able to connect with people and establish that element of trust and see who the person really is. And obviously with the movement, when you're scrolling through the feed, that helps too. But so I'm excited to see, obviously, for any other podcaster out there who films, or record, sorry, a podcast is definitely utilize the video version. And it's funny, I used to be so shy. It's like, I'm not turning my video on. I'm just doing audio. But you can't discount the value of the video portion and how you can use it in multiple ways. And now that we can use it to upload as live in LinkedIn, it's like, yay, it's great. So I'm excited to see the results from it anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And like what you just said there, what I would advise is, if you have a 30-second to a 1-minute clip from a podcast that you had, take that, just cut it out, put it into that short format, and upload that as your post with, just a little bit of context in terms of text above it. And the 30 seconds to a minute, be sure you have captions. Captions will make or break your video on any social platform, especially on LinkedIn. In fact, LinkedIn will actually give you better reach if you have captions. I've noticed that in the algorithm. So yeah, be sure and take advantage of video, but keep it short, to the point, and use captions.
Awesome. Well, you have given me so many tips, and I'm in the podcasting biz. Yes, LinkedIn is so underutilized. So thanks for illuminating that for myself and obviously the listeners. Because LinkedIn could be a game changer for podcasters out there if they really, decide to leverage it. Where can people find you and get more great tips or ask you any questions if they want to dive deeper?
Yeah. So the first place, obviously, please connect with me on LinkedIn. But then also I'll offer consulting sessions, one-on-one sessions for professionals, for podcasters. If you want help building your brand, coming up with ideas for content, you can find that at johnanthonyjones.com/consult. So that's one way. And the second way is I'm building an online course about LinkedIn. So
awesome.
it's soup to nuts, everything that I've learned over the last couple of years in one single course that's going to be live in January. And I'm taking pre-orders for that at a discount right now. And you can find that and you can enroll and learn more there at buildyourbrandonlinkedin.com.
Perfect. That's awesome. And then, when you do have it, give me some images and I'll share it and update the show notes with the link. But I'm so glad you came on my show to chat. It was super, super helpful.
Well, I really appreciate you having me.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Lindsay.